But yes, just to start this off with the Will and Jada segments, if someone tells you who they are from day one, believe them. And that's their way of giving you a choice. They are giving you a choice whether or not you want to stay, whether or not you want to walk that path with them. You have been given a choice. They're not putting a gun to your head like these tricky, lying manipulators will. Now, the other type that doesn't tell you the honest truth about who they are, they make you believe, oh, I'm going to do this in the future, and we're going to get married, and it's going to be all this, and they manipulate your mind to keep you. Those are the people that actually, technically, if you want to look at it in a certain way, they did force you. It feels like a rape of sorts when you find out that they're not any of those things, that those were all lies, deceit, deception. That's horrific, and I've been through that. But when somebody tells you straight up, honestly and authentically, and you knew who they were from day one, it is your responsibility. So when we look at Will and Jada, and this is just the tip of the iceberg, we're just getting started, okay, talking about them as a couple. There's a lot to learn here. And I'm not saying she's without flaw. Not at all. Like any human. And I'm not saying he's without flaw either, okay? But what I'm saying is, from the very beginning, Jada was honest about who she is inside. And I think Will went in agreeing to that. Oh, I love her so much, it doesn't matter to me. But here's where, in part 2, we're going to get into some other dynamics. And again, I'm not going to say if this is actually what happened or if it wasn't. But oftentimes, when we agree to something like that, sometimes there's codependency involved. Will Smith could have been codependent. Here's where we need to examine some of the things that other people don't think of. Like, what was really going on inside of Will when he agreed to that with Jada? Was he really keeping the reservations of, I'll change her? People often don't think of. They don't examine. Other people aren't talking about this. How things actually look on the surface versus what's really going on in the minds and the subconscious of the people involved. Now, on the surface, it just looks like, okay, Will and Jada had an agreement. They got married. They've been married almost 30 years. Will is a great man. He's a great father. He's given her everything. He's tried so hard. And you know, what's circulating in society right now is Jada's so mean and cruel and manipulates him and treats him bad, and she doesn't love him and she's driving him crazy. Okay, so this is what it looks like on the surface. But again, we need to think about the agreements that were made between them in the beginning, who she was, how she was authentic about that, and gave him an out. She gave him an out. She gave him a choice. Okay. And then he went ahead and agreed to marry her. Now, we heard Will say, oh, it was the best day of my life. All I ever dreamed about since I was 5 years old was getting married and having a family and being a great father and da-da-da-da. That's wonderful. I think Will Smith is one of the most attractive, intelligent, talented, deeply spiritual men on the planet. I think he really is. I'm a fan. But we've got to look at Will was very young in his 20s, and what was he coming through? What was going on inside of him just out of childhood? People don't talk about these types of things. In a sense, it seems to me that he was so attached to the idea of getting married that he was willing to agree to anything. Now let's think about that. That is not necessarily genuine love for another human either, okay? We're going to get into this in part 2. Looking at that aspect, and how even 30 years later, Will talks about, I never ever wanted to divorce again. This is till death. I told Jada that first divorce of mine was horrible. I failed. I will never get another divorce. I swore that till death do us part. Okay. Now, here's where we need to look at this. That type of overcompensation. Okay, I'm not saying Will Smith is not a great man, a great husband, a great father who deserves to be appreciated by his woman. Absolutely. And respected by his family. But it seems to me we need to pay attention. Sometimes people are more attached to their wound than they are actually genuinely loving their partner and what's best for their partner. You see? This is something not many people are breaking down while weighing in on this Will and Jada stuff. Sometimes people, and it kind of feels like to me, Will is so attached to that wound that he has inside from his first divorce, or maybe earlier in his life. I don't know, before that first divorce, childhood, I don't know. It sounds to me like Will is so attached to his wound that may not be healed, to his fear of getting a divorce, so attached to the idea, okay? These are levels that people don't think about, they don't talk about, they don't point out, they don't even realize. But it sounds to me like Will is so much more attached to the idea of, I will keep you for life, I swear to God, I will never get divorced again. It sounds to me like he's more attached to the idea of being married and never suffering the divorce shame and wound and all that comes with that again, than he actually is undying and genuine love for his wife. That's just what it sounds like to me, okay? And these are things we need to look at. Sometimes we people are more attached to an idea of something deeply rooted in us, whether it was a divorce in our parents, a wound in childhood, something we went through, we just don't ever want to go through that again, something not healed, something we just... A lot of times it is an idea that we are so much more attached to that's keeping us with someone than actual and genuine love for that other person. We're not even seeing them. A lot of times we can be so attached to our own, I'm determined not to ever do this again, that we don't even see that partner. They're a fucking thing to us. And I'm not saying that's what's going on with Will Smith in his head, but we see that shit in relationships, okay? And it could be. So sometimes the person that you think is the victim, oh, poor Will, he's just being so mistreated and she's such a bitch and he deserves a bit. They both deserve a wonderful partner. They both deserve to be appreciated. But what I'm saying is, things are not always what they seem. Mean old Jada. Okay, but wait a minute. We need to look at Will's actions too. He accepted Jada from day one, and she didn't lie about who she was. She told him who she was. He agreed to this, and then it kind of seems like he started going back on some of the boundaries and agreements that he agreed to. Now, I know she started going public with some shit, and she didn't have to do that. We will get into that in a part 2 and 3. I understand that. But there are some things that we need to look at on both sides. She didn't put a gun to his head. She has not forced him to do anything. And we kind of need to look at, although Will is a great man, he's been a great husband and father, although he has that going on, is he really more psychologically attached to the idea of never divorcing than he's actually, genuinely, in the present, loving the human that his wife is and accepting her as she is and learning and growing with her? That's what it's about for me. Is it real, true connection or just an attachment to an idea? Like a competition. I can win this. I'm not going to lose her. I don't care what she does. I will not go through that divorce again. I will not let that wound me again. That is when we need to go into the psychologist's office. Those are things to be taken into the therapist, okay? Not put onto our partner. We cannot love someone like that. That's not genuine love for another human. We don't own and control other humans. We don't grab onto them and this is what's going to heal me. She is going to make me better. She's going to be everything. He is going to... We don't do that to other humans. We have to do that work ourselves. So, I just want to get that out there. These are some dynamics that we're going to be exploring in my second video on this, okay? So stay tuned. I really appreciate you guys for joining me. Hit like and subscribe if you haven't done so already. And I will be back very soon with part 2, okay?